Hola amigos, I'm so glad that we're gathered here together because this is a very special time of the year here in Mexico and also for everyone around the world who, like you, carry a little piece of Mexico in your heart. My name is Rocio Carvajal and I write books and talk on a podcast about Mexico's culture, traditions and food. And today I want to share with you the fascinating history of the Day of the Dead tradition, also called in Spanish, la tradición del Día de los Muertos. So get comfy and ready to enjoy this story. Life is wonderful. It's like the warmth of the sunshine on your skin when you open your arms, or dancing to your favorite song when it is playing, or closing your eyes very, very tight when your grandparents are giving you a very squeezy hug, or laughing until you cry with your friends. See, us humans love life so much that we find it very hard when we have to say goodbye forever to someone we love. That is why there are hundreds of different ways in which people around the world perform funeral rites and have special ways to honor and remember the memory of those who have left us. Actually, in very primitive old cultures, people didn't really have a language to communicate the way you and I do. But they still had feelings of sadness, grief and loss. So what they used to do when someone died is that they would dig a special hole for these burials. They would lay a bed of flowers and they would put their loved one to rest in a comfortable position as if they were just sleeping. Also, they will place their favorite objects and sometimes their tools as well to keep them company. And together, as a community, they found comfort in each other. You see, throughout history, all around the world, from the Egyptians, Chinese tribes, the Vikings, the First Nations of North America, and the Mayans and Aztecs and many others, they all came up with special and unique ways to say the last farewell to the people they loved. Also, they created tales and myths and stories to tell their children about their ancestors so they could hear about them even when they were gone. Our modern world is really not too different from that because we also have different traditions for this same purpose. So different countries all around the world, we all honor our dead. There is something very special that you have to remember when it comes to the ceremonies to commemorate the lives of veterans who passed away, friends, family, and even our beloved pets, because they are also part of our family. So it shouldn't be their absence that we remember, but rather their lives. All those happy and special moments that bring a smile to our faces is actually what we should celebrate. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago, long before the parents of your grandparents were born, here in Mexico, the ancient indigenous tribes came up with their own unique ways to make sense of life and death, and to explain the origins of the universe and figure out a way to keep the memory of their ancestors alive. And I am almost certain that you have seen Day of the Dead altars, which are called ofrendas in Spanish. And I bet you are familiar with some of the objects that go in them, like sugar skulls, special breads, and cut-out paper like the one I have here. And surely you have wondered, where did this idea come from? Who created these altars? And what is the point of making them? Well, to answer these and a few other questions I myself have wondered, let me take you back in time to see how these traditions took shape. Mexico is a very old country and has a long history. that goes back for thousands of years. And long before the Spanish conquistadors ever set their eyes on this land, this territory was inhabited by many different tribes. In fact, there were 68 of them. And they had different languages, had different religions, and particular ways of life. But they did have a few things in common, like the foods they ate, the constructions they built, and they also had similar ways in which they created rituals of togetherness and conviviality. That means ways of finding a nice, good excuse to stay together and feel happy while being all together as a community. And very important for us today, they also shared the notion that life and our spirits carry on existing beyond death, just in different forms and sometimes in different worlds. You see, the Aztec or Mexica people, at some point in history, they were the largest tribe of all, so much so that they created an empire. And they believed that there were many gods and they had a special influence in the forces of nature, like the wind, the rain, the water, and the fire. And also they believed that some of these deities, that means gods, also ruled over life and death. So the Mexica came up with the idea that when someone dies, the person's spirit has to go through a long journey into the underworld. And this underworld was called Mictlan. In their mythology, the world was ruled by two gods, Mictlantecutli, and let me read this name. His wife was called Miccatexihuatl. And because this was an otherwise unknown and mysterious place, the Mexica believed that only the pure nature of the innocent spirit of a Xoloscuintle, that is a Mexican hairless dog, could guide the souls of the departed and protect them through this very long journey. So after going through different levels in this underworld of the Mictlan, the souls finally arrived at the presence of the ruling gods, to which they paid their respects. And in return, the gods will grant them the gift of returning back to this world in the form of guardian spirits, or just return occasionally for special celebrations to be with their loved ones. Meanwhile, in our world, the world of the living, the indigenous people believed that in spite of not having the physical presence of their loved ones, they were able to perform certain rites and ceremonies that will allow them to summon, to call upon the spirits of their ancestors so they could share and enjoy only a few precious moments during special days, so they could feel all together, loved and happy again. And this is precisely what ofrendas are all about. You see, the indigenous people really believed that we are all children of the earth, and by using elements of nature like wind, fire, and water, they would create a symbolic union, like a bridge between the different worlds of the living and the dead. And we know now, thanks to many archaeological works and excavations, that at altars and burials, people used to place special objects like seeds, foods, ceremonial incense burners, and even flowers. But also, there were personal belongings from the deceased people for whom the altars and these burials were dedicated to, like spears, arrows, tools, and even jewelry, just like in the photos that you are able to see now. A long, long time ago, 499 years to be precise, the Spanish invaded what is today known as Mexico and converted this territory into a colony of Spain. That means that they forced people into accepting that Spaniards were the new rulers of the land. Well, as you can imagine, this didn't make people very happy, and they were forced to learn Spanish, forget about their old religion and instead convert to Christianism and specifically Catholicism, which was the faith of these Catholic Spanish people. Now, the whole transition of this new way of life was very slow and complicated, but luckily for us, they found a way to negotiate their traditions in a way that the culture of the Spaniards and the indigenous people were both present through language, music, ways of farming, that is producing food, and even the way of cooking food as well. Can you imagine? And so the ofrendas, just like many other traditions, had very big transformations that made room for the Spaniards' own ideas and objects and traditions to also find a way to be present in those. We can even say that the indigenous people show the Spaniards a different way to honor their dead, and learn through these new rites how not to be just sad, but also kind of communicate with them in a different way. And that is how, from October the 28th to November the 2nd, we celebrate Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead in English. Now, there are two places in which we prepare special altars and arrangements for the dead. One is at home and the other are cemeteries. So let's see the second one. Now, it is a tradition here in Mexico that we all get together with our families and we visit graveyards and cemeteries. We clean the tombstones of our relatives. We make a small altar on top of them, like you can see in the photos. We burn incense, and sometimes people even bring foods and drinks that were the favorite of their deceased relatives and friends. And people enjoy all these foods and drinks there at the cemetery. We feel sad, yes, but we also try to cheer and comfort each other with nice anecdotes and stories, because we believe that the spirits do come back and we are all reunited again, and we don't want them to feel forgotten or sad, so we even play music for them. So it is not uncommon to see mariachi bands, trios, marimba, norteño, and all these music being played at cemeteries, like in the photos that you can see here. Now, at home is a very different story, because for each of these days we prepare something special, and sometimes altars can be really big. There are many styles and sizes, and well, because there were many ancient indigenous tribes here in Mexico, and like I told you, it is a very big country, so you can imagine that they came up with different ways and created different objects to put on them. So during the colonial period, each region, each state, and sometimes each city created their own unique and special tradition and style to make these altars. In central Mexico, where I am from, altars tend to have several levels. Sometimes they have up to 7 levels, and they're like in the style of a pyramid. So each different level is smaller as you go all the way to the top. And we can distinguish 3 different elements that go into these altars. Some are ornaments, just to make the altar look pretty and attractive for us and for the spirits. That is our belief. And we put things like cut-out paper, flowers as well. And we also have ritualistic objects like water, also sugar skulls, incense, candles, and food. And also we include personal objects that belonged to our lost loved ones. But I will talk about that a little bit later. Now, I mentioned that the celebrations last for several days, and each of them is dedicated to remember different people. And this is how it works. On October the 28th, we prepare altars for all those people who died in accidents or in a not very nice way. On the next day, on October the 29th, we commemorate all the people who died drowned. Now, historians think that because many centuries ago here in Mexico, the cities were much smaller and there were a lot of rivers around them. So during the rainy seasons, floodings were a common problem, and surely many people who didn't know how to swim died as a result of these floods. So much so that they dedicated a whole day to remember them. Now, don't worry. Thankfully, this is not really a problem anymore here in Mexico, but we also like to keep this tradition. On October the 30th, we honor the souls of our lost relatives, those people that died such a long time ago, that we don't even remember their names. And also, we honor those people who had no families and no one to remember them, so we put something special for them. On October the 31st, we prepare special foods and place things like toys and baby clothes because we remember the lives, very short lives, of the babies that died before being born, before birth, or that died very soon after they were born. And the next day, we continue honoring the memory of the little ones, but this time children that, for whatever reason, left this world a bit too soon. And last, on November the 2nd, we honor the lives of all souls, everyone, including our beloved pets, because they are part of our family too. So, for instance, this year I had to say goodbye to one of my cats. She was very old, but had a very happy and loved life. We loved her so much that we're going to place a photo of her along with some of her favorite toys and some food and water because we really think that her spirit will be able to come back and enjoy these things. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about the special elements that go in many Day of the Dead altars. And because they have an indigenous origin, I think they're very interesting. First, we have the burning of incense and copal that comes out from trees that grow in our forests. We collect this resin and burn it on special ceremonial burners. Now, the smell of the smoke is very aromatic, and our ancestors believed that it had the power to cleanse the houses and the rooms to make everyone feel comfortable, including the spirits. Also, we burn candles and oils because the indigenous people believed that this fire was a very special and sacred thing, like a beacon, like a lighthouse that will draw the spirits back into our houses so they can spend some time with us. And I think you will like this one. Now, a long time ago, indigenous people used to actually dig out the bones and the skulls of their loved ones from the graves. They would clean them and place them very nicely at the altars. And some Spaniards didn't quite feel comfortable with this idea. I don't blame them. So instead, they came up with different ways to have the same representation in a less scary way. So they created breads that look like bones and skulls. And this is how hojaldras, which are one of our favorite Day of the Dead breads, were invented, and they found their way into our altars. And one of my favorite Mexican-Spanish mestizo invention are edible skulls, which are made with sugar. Those are the most popular ones, but we also make them with amaranth, like you can see, and we also make them with chocolate. We decorate them with very brightly colored sugar paste, and sometimes we write the names of our lost relatives on the little sugar skull, and we place them on the altars. And another cut-out paper. Now, this is a much more modern element, and it dates back to the 1930s. So there is a town in my home state of Puebla which is called Salvador Huixcolotla. And people there invented these designs and started to cutting them out with special tools on this tissue paper that we call papel de China, which is very, very thin and flies very nicely when the wind blows. And people loved them so much that now they make all sorts of designs, not only for Day of the Dead season, but for religious celebrations, parties, and sometimes weddings as well. And of course, we can't forget about food because, okay, people know that spirits can't just sit and eat like you and I do. But we do believe that they can absorb the essence, the aromas, and like the love we put into making these foods. So many people go as far as making breakfast, lunch, and dinner and place them on the altars during these special days. Also, flowers are very important, and we have 3 different flowers that we really, really like and are very special for us. One of them is called cempasúchitl or marigold, and it's very beautiful because it has this round shape and has a very deep orange, sort of golden color, and is very aromatic. The other 2 are baby's breath or clouds. That means nube in Spanish. They don't have a particular smell, but they look very pretty. And also we put another one that in English is called cock's crest. And in Spanish we call it terciopelo, which means velvet, because it's very, very soft when you touch it. The color of this flower is always purple, and it's very unusual, but it's very beautiful. And during the 1800s, a long, long time ago, there was a caricaturist, that means someone that draws cartoons, and he was called José Guadalupe Posada. He invented the cartoon of a skeleton dressed up as a very elegant woman with a hat that had flowers and feathers, and he called her La Catrina, which means the elegant woman. Now, people didn't get scared. Actually, they loved it. They loved it so much that many artists started copying this design. And to this day, the different images of the Catrina all dressed up very fancy is an unmissable item in our altars. And in the 1900s, when photography became cheap and available for everyone to have their portrait taken, when people passed away, the families used to place these portraits on the altars so they could remember them exactly the way they looked when they were happy and young. So that is how this modern form of art made its way into our altars and became a ritualistic object. 18 years ago, probably before many of you were born, in 2008, the United Nations declared Dia de los Muertos a cultural heritage of mankind tradition. This means that people around the world recognize the beauty and importance of this Mexican tradition and decided that the whole world should learn from its beauty and value. And as you can see, Dia de los Muertos is a very special tradition. And now, thanks to social media, films, and television, the world can get to know, learn, and be inspired by our culture. And guess what? We Mexicans also borrow different things from other cultures. In the US, as you well know, you celebrate All Hallows Eve, also known as Halloween. That comes from an ancient tradition from England. And we really like the way you decorate your houses and your gardens and yourselves. So much so that here in Mexico, it's not uncommon to see Halloween objects along with Day of the Dead Mexican decorations because we think is fun and is beautiful. And sometimes people even dressed up the way you do, although we don't really do trick-or-treating, but we like having fun. I think that borrowing from different cultures is a great way to recognize that other people have great ideas too, and they are interesting and rich. Also, I think it's very important to know the history and all the culture and traditions that is behind these celebrations, just the way we have done today here. So whether you make an altar at home or paint your face in the style of a Catrina or make Day of the Dead bread or however you want to celebrate, I think you should feel proud that you are contributing at keeping this tradition alive. Also, you are giving it your personal touch and making it very, very special for you. Finally, I have prepared a digital document so you can continue enjoying this tradition. In this document, you will find my own family's recipe to prepare calabaza en tacha, which is candied pumpkin that we place at the altars in my home state of Puebla. It's very delicious. Also, I put together a Day of the Dead playlist on YouTube so you can enjoy some traditional songs that relate to Day of the Dead, but also the Mexican songs that I think you will enjoy. I also placed there some Day of the Dead inspired designs that you can print and color. And last, 2 links for tutorials so you can paint your face like a sugar skull or a Catrina. I really hope you have enjoyed and learned a little bit about this wholesome tradition of Dia de los Muertos. Feel free to share this with your friends, and if you want to hear more stories about Mexico's culture, traditions and food, well, I suggest you head to your podcast app and find my podcast that is called Paz de Chipotle. It is absolutely free and you can find it and enjoy it in your favorite podcast app, or you can tell your mom or dad to find it for you. I want to give special thanks to Maria Gonzalez for inviting me to share this story that makes all of us proud and happy. And I hope all the familia at Puente Latino have enjoyed it. I have nothing else to say, but take care of yourselves and Feliz Dia de los Muertos. Bye bye from me.